Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of Brazen. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so grateful that you decided to take about an hour for yourself today to really step into the energy of what it is that you've been calling into your life. A lot of my community, a lot of the collective energy that I've been hearing about, seeing, and even feeling myself is it is time to stop creating the energy of this new identity in 2024 and start fucking stepping into it and being it. So I love that we have Ryan here. Ryan Moresby is joining us today. He is also from Australia, correct? Am I reading? Yeah, South Africa and then
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
Love that. So he is here joining us today, and he is good friends with Travis, the technician, who we've had on the podcast before. So I'm really stoked that we've been able to connect like that. And we're going to be talking about all things stepping into that identity and also really touching on the work that he does, especially with men, because we were talking before we pressed record about how a lot of the women in my community are in that transitional period, whether they've left a relationship or they're starting new relationships romantically. And the women in my community are truly looking for the men that are doing this work. So and women that are doing the work, but mostly the men. I'm so excited to have you on here and talk about this. I think it's such big work. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you for being here and for coming on Brazen. And before I let you introduce yourself, I want to read this little paragraph that you sent me because it's pretty fucking bomb. Listen to this, guys. Ryan is a 26-year-old Gold Coast local from South Africa who has gone from a depressed business owner, by the way, it says the construction industry, which I grew up with blue collar workers, so I know that transition from that work into this work has to be so interesting. I'm very excited to hear about it. To living a purpose driven life. He is the founder, that is, of the Inspired Project Coaching Institute, a personal development company for those people to go from lacking energy, direction, and purpose to living their most inspired life each and every day. Love that. Love that so much. Through the embodiment of masculine and feminine, hell yes, Ryan believes in helping his clients cultivate healthy, intimate, and meaningful relationships. His mission is to educate others to create a new paradigm for conscious, embodied human beings. Holy crap. I love that. Ryan, thank you for being here. Would you like to say hello to everybody?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I love your energy as well. Like reading that. It's yeah, it's like, yeah, it feels like I just want to keep listening back to that. I should put it on record and listen to it every time I wake up in the morning.
Remind yourself of who you are every day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I
love
love
it. But
it.
yeah, super grateful to be here. Thank you.
I'm so grateful that you are here. Thank you for being here, for doing the work. And honestly, just to say this, thank you for reaching out and asking because y'all, he asked to come on the podcast and I dig that energy. Like I
Mm.
love searching for people to come on the podcast and connecting with them that way, but I love when people reach out to me and they have that grit and that drive and they're like, "I want to be on here. I want to do this." And I'm like, "Fucking let's do that." Absolutely. So thank you for that as well. And I would love to dive in with you. Really, where do you stand right now with the clients that you're working with when it comes to learning that personal balance of masculine and feminine? What are you noticing right now?
Yeah, great question. Um, Look, it normally stems from relationships.
Hmm.
And like we'll go quite deep into that, but yeah, it normally begins from relationships. And that's what really awakens people into this work. And I really and that's what I've noticed awakens people to this work. It's normally when they experience something that's painful, right?
Right.
Most people don't actually a lot of people I've recognized, all the people that I've worked with, is that they don't look within until it's painful enough.
Mm.
And it's normally that they'll just keep sitting on the nail until it gets painful enough. And normally that's through relationships. And then awakening that, realizing that, is them recognizing that they're potentially out of balance with their own masculine and feminine within themselves without even really understanding or knowing that. And normally it comes in the way of a relationship breakdown, and then
Yeah.
recognizing the roles that they were playing in that relationship. So this is really like, I have found the awakening for people to really step into doing this work, and that was very much the beginning of my journey for myself. Yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool. Now, of course, I did a little bit of research on you. And are you speaking about the relationship that you had that really catapulted you deep into this work and then really living this like purpose-driven life's work that you're doing with others?
Yeah, the first relationship that I really had, I was about 17 years old. And yeah, back then I was, as you shared, I was in the construction industry. I left school early. I jumped into working physically hard straight away because that was my role model. That's the only way I knew how to create some sort of success in life, was working physically hard.
Yeah.
And this is what men will do. They use their direct role model and representation of the masculine energy that they
Which, side
experienced
note,
growing up.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. I have to,
Go,
literally, as you said that, I realized I'm using my John Wayne cup today. I
there
just
we
had
go.
to, I had to, sorry. I don't love interrupting people, but I was like, holy crap, I almost just spit my broth out. Anyways, continue.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so look, I got straight into it because, throughout school I was told that I wasn't going to go to university or anything like that. So I started on the job site straight away. And within that, I was in a relationship, and I just went straight like into life. Like I was straight into it, like even with relationships as well, already like portraying what I experienced when it came to love growing up. So I
Mm,
was in this relationship at 17 years old, and it was extremely painful, right? It was like the first love. It was like my heart uh opening for the first time as a boy. Like I'm still a boy
yeah,
at 17, right? I'm out there working physically hard every single day, like on the job site, like trying to make life work, and like taking on all of this at 17 years old, right?
right.
And yeah, and then I would say about 20 years old, that relationship broke down. And throughout that's where I was really really building myself in the building industry as a carpenter, right?
Yeah.
My dream was to become a builder, and to really go and create success that way, right? And that's what I did. But then that relationship really awakened me into myself. It was an
Mm,
invitation. It was my very first invitation back to myself. And with that, that was about 7 or 8 years ago. And that was my invitation into this work. And my personal and spiritual development journey began back then, when I recognized that this pain was not foreign. This pain didn't just come from the relationship, it was already there. And that what showed up in that relationship was so painful. I realized it wasn't normal. Like it wasn't that's not how relationships are supposed to be. And then started reading books, listening to podcasts, Tony Robbins, like all of this, right? While
yeah.
I was yeah, still in the building industry, right? And then pairing that with being in that industry, I'm like, cool, I want to create, my thoughts change, create my reality. And like I started shifting my mindset, right? And then
Yeah.
with that, I built a successful carpentry business at the age of 21, 22. And yeah, it was just like a constant initiation back to myself, because I got to a point where this relationship happened, that broke down. I was just at this deep level of unfulfillment.
Mm,
And it was a period of time where I was like working 6, 7 days a week. I was training every single day because I was actually, I used to be a motocross athlete. So I was racing as
nice.
well. Yeah, I was doing a lot at the time. And then this relationship, and then pushed all my friends away. And that right there was the exact mirror of the masculine that I experienced growing up. That was dad,
Mm,
right?
yep.
And it got to the point where I was, yeah, 21, 22 years old. And it was a period of time where I really considered it would be a lot less painful to leave this world than it would be to stay here.
Mm,
And I know a lot of young men experience that. And from that, I've really like made the decision to turn my pain into my purpose. And ever since that decision, yeah, every single day has been me living on purpose. And that's when it was literally an overnight decision where I pushed my trailer into the shed, closed the door. It still sits there today. About thousands of dollars worth of equipment still sits there today. And I haven't looked back since. And that was about 6 years ago. Yeah.
wow. What
Yeah.
an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that with us, by the way.
Mm.
That's incredible. And I feel really, really drawn to say, like, I feel like a lot of us go through that very similar journey. And most of us who started that, like you were saying, I love the way you worded it, that invitation to this work. There's a lot of people that I've been speaking to where it started for them about 7, 8 years ago, which astrologically speaking, like I'm an astro girly, so I totally am like that fucking checks out. Um, And I love that because the collective, the people who are finding that, oh yeah, about 7, 8 years ago, I had this big invitation and all of these things happen. That energy is really the energy of the people that are opening up a brand new like chapter, but a brand new book this year. And they really started it last year. I've been feeling it personally because 7, 8 years ago is when I had my personal moment of everything like just really falling apart and my marriage ended and all these things happened. And it feels very collective. Are you noticing that within yourself that it's not a new chapter anymore? It's a brand new fucking book that you're writing?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you probably know, the initiation into around 27, 30 years old is like where things really start to kick off. And yeah, I'm
Yeah.
right in the middle of that.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you. That's incredible. So tell me then, with everything taking off, and I love that you're wearing the shirt for Inspired Project. Tell us, how did Inspired Project really come to life even more with the work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I finished, my career in the in the building industry, I always wanted to pursue coaching. I always wanted to be working with athletes. I always wanted to be helping and serving people at the deeper level, right? That was like my soul's mission, my soul's purpose. And recognizing back then, that was me for the first time making the decision to um, live within integrity of my soul's path.
Mm,
And from that point, I went all in on coaching, and it was personal training first. And I knew that that was my stepping stone to get to where I am today.
yeah,
I always knew that, I want to be a thought leader in the space. I want to be on stages. I want to be creating transformation for thousands of people all around the world. And I knew that that was going to begin by me transforming people physically first. So I went and worked with high level business owners and athletes in the gym, coaching them, really helping them step into their potential, not just physically, but also providing the tools to really energetically move into the either athlete or the business owner, the father, the mother that they know that they're capable of being.
hell yeah,
So I was
love
doing
that.
that in the gym, and there was, as you can imagine, there's a slight like incongruence there with the kinds of people that come into the gym to train and the
Yeah,
people that are really doing that deep work.
yeah,
I was fortunate enough to have some incredible clients that were doing both, and to really be the person to awaken them into that. It was phenomenal. But it was very much about a year and a half ago where I I recognized, really looked at my highest values, looked at my soul's purpose, my soul's mission, what I'm supposed to be doing. And I
mhm,
realized that I'm going to have the most impact and the most success as long as I'm living aligned to what I'm supposed to be doing.
mhm.
So I legit within a 2 week period, I fired all my clients, right? In the gym, I moved out of the gym, and within a 2 week period, I started the Inspired Project. And um,
Nice.
beginning to start with, it was just working with men, and I started a program called the Inspired Man Program. And
Mhm,
basically, it was to help men really overcome their limitations and to really discover their purpose and to integrate the healthy masculine energy so they can really show up as the leaders for themselves and for the people around them in their life. And
yeah.
yeah, that really awakened what I've now created, where I now get to work with men and women all over the world. Like I have clients all different countries, and yeah, really helping them from going from relationship breakdowns to struggles in relationships to them feeling a lack of direction, purpose, certainty with themselves, lack of self-worth, to really integrating and stepping into their highest and deepest selves. And by
Yeah.
doing that, then being able to create the life that some of them couldn't even imagine to begin with. Yeah,
Uh, Isn't the work we do fucking awesome?
it is pretty cool.
It's so cool. Like listening to you, like probably the same type of feeling as when I was reading your bio. I'm like, damn, that is what we do, man.
Mm,
Like we have clients, these soul clients that come to us and they're like, listen, like I've had the moment, like you've talked about like your moment where you had that, like, nope, something's got to fucking change. And
mm,
I love when clients come to us when they've already had that moment and they're like, listen, like last week or yesterday or whenever something shifted in me, something changed, and I have made the fucking choice. I've made the decision.
mm,
Things are changing. And when clients come to us in that energy, like you have to almost take a big deep inhale with them and be like, damn, okay, like you're gonna pull some shit out the hat. Like I love that for you.
Yeah.
And when they come with that energy and they do want to change and they do want to reach a higher potential, they want to invest in themselves, time, energy, money, they want to become more. You walk beside those clients and the transformation that they have, the change that's made, it's miraculous. Like if
Mm,
they come in with that energy, that's a special sauce on top. Like I'm sure you feel the same way. I can get a client anywhere they want to go. You want to go over
yeah.
there? Fuck yeah, let's do it. But if you
Mhm.
bring your special sauce of like your pure dedication and inspiration and your belief that it will happen, everything is possible. There is absolutely no fucking limit.
Yeah. Yeah. I really believe when the student is really ready, that the
Mm-hmm.
teacher does appear. And that can, that life is a constant invitation for us to come back to our deepest selves.
Yeah.
And it's only once I've discovered it's only once we get quiet enough to actually listen to those invitations on a day-to-day basis that's trying to invite us back to our deepest selves,
Mhm.
then yeah, once someone is in that stage, they're unstoppable.
I
Mm.
love that. Yeah, because I mean, the invitations that we have, I mean, there's been several times when I'm sure I've had a knock on the door and I'm like, no, thank you. I feel like eating
Yeah.
Doritos on the couch today. So I'm gonna pass on that. And then there's been times where that knock has happened, that invitation has come forward, and it's it feels like home, but it does feel like a challenge depending on what part of your life that invitation's really settling into. And you
Mm.
talked about how your clients and mine are the same. They, transitioning in relationships, understanding what relationships they want to have. Because at the end of the day, the deeper you go into this work, honestly, you realize truly what relationships hold within them for the healing and the growth and expansion. And it's really incredible to watch when you are working with clients, especially internationally. I think, side note, it's so cool that we're all in different areas of the world, but we're dealing with the
Mm.
exact same shit
Yep.
every single day.
Yeah.
But when our clients, that have been doing this work for a while, they're already pretty invested in themselves. They already understand the main fundamentals of this work. And when we start, doing our process to help them through a transition of a relationship into a new one, it's really beautiful to watch that unfold because you watch, it's like a deer walking for the first time sometimes, right? Like your client's like,
Mm.
I've never had a relationship that's healthy before. This is amazing.
Mm.
Like, and you get to watch them really uncover pieces of themselves. And I love that piece to it because it
Mhm.
reminds them. I think there's so much out there that tells us that we're doing shit wrong. And it's such a good reminder that they're doing shit right. Like you can
Mm.
go on any Instagram, any podcast, any book, anywhere. I've even talked about it. Like, hey, this might be what you're doing fucking wrong. But not but. And it's really important to remember it's not always figuring out what we're not fucking doing correctly. It's looking at what we are doing right and celebrating those moments. And those
Mm.
first couple of months inside of healthy relationships with clients, I just love it because they really do get to see in real time, holy crap, this is my work paying off. Like all those
Mm.
times that I caught my automatic responses instead of fucking flipping out, I decided to take a big deep breath. Or all those times when I really, dug deep within myself to figure out the root cause and follow that string down. This is how it turned out. Now I have this relationship that I can communicate in, I can receive and give love. So I love those times with clients. How do you feel about those? Do you get to experience those as well?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the work that I experience is very much people either going through a breakup period, and
Mm,
it's really being the space and the initiation for them to awaken into their deepest selves, their highest potential, and to really
mm,
go out there and cultivate really a deep connection relationship with themselves, and to
mm,
really create their own frame of energy so they can go out there and be the person, be the man, be the woman that's going to attract that person into their life. So it's
mm,
either that or it's their inner relationship right now that they're really struggling with. And yet it's very much the same thing. It's bringing them back to themselves, cultivating a relationship with themselves, being in their own frame of energy, right? And then having the level of self-worth to know what they are worthy of actually receiving in a relationship. And then
mm,
with that, it's understanding just the dynamics of communication, the energies, the and the most important part is very much, where are you in your own masculine and feminine energy? Where are you out of balance within yourself? And
Mhm.
are you giving the man the space for him to actually be able to lead? Right? Why, for women, why is it you're holding the masculine shield of protection? What did you experience growing up that's making you pick that up and feel unsafe within your nervous system around men? And then for men, it's like, why is it that you're so freaking nice, right? Why is it that you have this needy energy for, why do you need validation, approval, acceptance from women to dictate your worth, right? Or why are you so closed off and you keep love at arm's length? It's like
Mm.
really helping men awaken into that and step into the masculine leadership that's actually going to allow a woman to soften into her feminine. And one of the biggest things that really awakened me into this work of helping men really cultivate that level of leadership within themselves for the people around them is, I used to go to all the personal development events, and all the women were experiencing the same thing. They were at the event without their partner,
Mm.
and they were awakening to how unsafe they actually feel being around men majority of their life. And it really woke me up to, wow, like this is what the unhealthy masculine is actually creating in the world. And it's quite an issue. It's quite a problem. And this is really going back. This is really the reason this has really happened in the last 50 to 100 years is because of the industrial age, right? Men
Mm.
going off to work and then, or needing to, or going to war, and then the children experiencing emotionally unavailable men, and then growing up as these really nice guys that seek validation, approval from the feminine, or they're really enmeshed with their mother,
Yeah.
right? And I do a lot of work and experience. I would say easy 99% of men that I work with have deep mother wounds.
Wow.
That's it's like either a fear of abandonment,
Mm.
right? And I would say that's probably the deepest wound that I work with, not just with men, but mostly men.
Yeah.
And with that, uh, they close their heart off,
Mm.
or they become super attached, needy, or the biggest thing that I struggle with was, because I hadn't cultivated that healthy relationship with my own emotions, with my own being my own pillar of support, right? Because going back to the little 5-year-old Rye that didn't get the love, nurturing that he needed, watching his parents separate from each other and not receiving that consistency, right? I made it mean back then that I wasn't worthy enough or good enough to be loved. And that means that I needed to be someone else. I need to get attention. It's like, hey, look at me, look at me. Like, mom, dad, like, look at me. Like,
Yeah.
and from the age of 5, I decided to step away from who I was because I didn't think who I was good enough. Because obviously not. I'm not getting it, which is confusing as fuck. So
Right. Right.
yeah. And then growing up, right? In relationships, it's like, hey, look at me, like give me attention. And it's me perceiving, okay, I need to be someone else in order to be loved. And with that, then you're emotionally dependent on how they feel because you're so attached to something outside of yourself. And when
Mhm.
men do that, they place their self-worth on their partner outside of them. And then anything that threatens the relationship, right, threatens his own nervous system. So he can't actually, it's impossible for him to hold himself in his own emotions.
Yeah.
And a man that isn't in his own frame of energy, who has cultivated a deep relationship with his deepest self, which is his heart, when he can't be that pillar of support for himself, then he needs to get it from someone else. And if he needs to get it from someone else, then no one can depend on him emotionally. And that's the number one thing that women need in relationships is that immovable rock that they can lean on, they can crash against and know that this man is here no matter what. And that I can depend on him emotionally to show up consistently. That's the
Yeah.
main thing, consistently. Yeah.
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 That's the biggest one I hear, not just from my community and, family, friends, myself, but that's like every single woman, I think, is just like, it's the consistency and trusting that the consistency will continue to be there. But I'm also a really big believer, which I'm sure you are just from our conversation thus far, that whatever you are perceiving that you're not receiving from your partner, you're likely also not giving that as well. So, a big thing that my clients and I talk about on the other end of these conversations is if you're wanting consistency, emotional consistency from your partner, then yeah, acknowledge that and have that conversation, but maybe consider, I should say, that before that conversation is fully had, that you start to kind of experiment with the relationship and just take a look and see what happens if you zoom out during a conversation with your partner and you're like, whoa, this is an opportunity for me to show up more consistently with the emotional support, with the whatever is needed at that time or wanted. And being able to look at that, then it's kind of like reverse engineering in the moment because you can be like, wow, I was going to have a conversation about this, but now I can go into that conversation saying, hey, now I really understand what part I play in this because I already kind of
Mm,
dabbled in it before I talked to you. And I saw that when I do support you consistently with emotional needs, with this need, that you respond differently. And I think that that's a
mhm,
big piece to the puzzle for a lot of women is they're I mean, everybody's different. Some are shut down, some over explains. I mean, everybody's different. And when it comes to those conversations, choosing to take action before that conversation, knowing that you're doing it with intention and with purpose, to watch and see how your behavior, your actions, your words change that experience. That way, you're
mhm.
going into that conversation of what you need and what you want and finding out what your partner needs and wants. You're going in with more knowledge, more wisdom, more understanding.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I speak to is very much eh, the the whole relationship coaching and all of that. You see a lot of like, yeah, like communicate your needs, like understand your needs, know your boundaries. Like, yeah, these are all of these things are great. But here's the thing, you don't actually know what you need or what boundaries to set if you don't know who the fuck you are at the deepest level. Because most people are communicating needs and setting boundaries around wounds.
Mhm.
And then they wonder, right, it's like they are either still not receiving it, or it's just never good enough because that's probably the very wound itself, right? So
I was
yeah.
there. I'm a full ass human being that did that exact thing.
And so have I. And I'll never speak to something that I haven't experienced myself either. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And yeah, it's once someone is able to meet the absolute depth of themselves, know who they are at their absolute core, then they can actually communicate, not only communicate what they need, but they
Yeah.
can set the standard for what they know they're worthy of in a relationship as well. And from that, someone who has done that also understands that the very, very first thing in relationship is self-responsibility,
Mhm.
is taking absolute radical responsibility as to how you're showing up in the situation as well. And here's the thing, if you keep showing up and because you've met the depth of yourself that, yeah, I am consistently showing up, I'm communicating in a healthy way, I'm setting these boundaries. And if it's still not being received, then that's your invitation to look at, is this even compatible?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's an ever don't you believe that that's kind of like an ever cycling thing? Like, I don't know that we ever are done with that. I'm pretty sure
Mm.
until we're 90 years old, we're gonna be looking at this and the work never ends. I just feel like we just get a lot better at doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. I think it's the more we, and this is the process that I work on. I call it like discovering, like actually discovering all of the things that
Yeah.
that we have been placed on us by society, by conditioning, by belief systems, by ourselves, right? By
Yeah.
the movies we watch, by the shit that we consume, right? Yeah, it's a constant. And here's the thing, as long as we have an egoic mind that's trying to keep us safe from the world, then
Mhm.
yeah, there's going to be things to discover. But the more we can discover our deepest selves and recognize when we're operating either out of fear or love, I think we're in the best possible position to actually experience more love, joy, happiness, fulfillment, abundance,
Yeah.
and yeah, live more on purpose. Mm,
Absolutely. I mean, it's a big undertaking to do, the big, deep inner work, to do the shadow work, to do the identity work, to do all that. It's big. And, once you do it, I almost believe that sometimes like there's a part where like we're on that like that wheel of healing and wheel of like
mm,
slaying dragons and wheel of all that. And sometimes we have to be plucked off of it. I had to. My shaman had to
mm,
come in and be like, Heather, get off that fucking wheel. I'm like, oh, thanks. I didn't see I was
mm,
doing that. And like
mhm.
as we end these processes and open new chapters and new books, it really just becomes maintaining. Like there's going to be shit that happens in your life. You're going to continue to learn how to
Yeah.
dance with life. You're never going to be able to control it. And as you do, I think the biggest thing is recognizing you're doing this work to enjoy your life. You're doing this work to have more happiness, to have more fulfillment, to have more intentional moments of experience where you are fully expressing yourself and you're doing it with love while you receive it. Like this work, although it's forever, it
Mhm.
is the foundation that allows us to really live a fulfilled life. It is not the purpose. It allows us to really go after that purpose and maintain it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is very much why I moved to Bali last year.
Love
Yeah,
that.
I was, sitting in my office and I was like, what am I doing? I've built this company where I can do this anywhere. And yeah, packed up everything, lived in Bali for a while. So yeah, yeah,
I
it's
love
very much we can very much get stuck on that hamster wheel of like of doing the work. And here's the thing with that. It's from what place is that coming from? Is it, and for most people, normally it's coming from a place of I still feel unworthy, so I need to still become better and work on being better all the freaking time because at the deep core level, I still don't actually feel worthy enough of being this person. And this is where we then come into the identity work. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
definitely want to get into identity work because I
Mm,
I truly believe that there's like 4 or 5 chapters as I work with clients like in deep one-on-one work in 6 month or
mhm,
more programs. And identity work and then the reintegration as the reborn self are really the last 2 chapters. So I love those concepts. I'd love to dive into that with you. But tell me more about Bali, bro. Like, tell me, I want to know about Bali. Like, how did that feel to pack everything up and move to Bali and really live fully the life that you had been creating the whole time?
yeah, it was quite surreal, and it was very much it was it was exactly the 5 year point that I left my carpentry business to when I packed up and moved to Bali. So this like creating living on purpose, it doesn't happen overnight. Like it's been a 5 year journey. It's been the best journey I've ever been on. But yeah, packing up and moving there was phenomenal, and it uh it was the taste of the freedom that I've created for myself. Um, but Bali itself was a spiritual awakening that I will remember for the rest of my life. That was a
Yeah.
journey in itself. That could be a whole podcast in itself.
I'd love to have you
Yeah,
back on to talk about it. Absolutely. I
yeah.
love about spiritual awakening journeys, especially with
Mhm.
men, because I just don't feel like y'all are heard enough when it comes to your spiritual awakening journeys. So,
Mm, yeah, yeah, and yeah, that's really awakened what will be the catalyst of what I create moving forward. And
mm,
yeah, there's been some healing and transformation, and probably the biggest, I would say, the biggest ego death that I may or may not experience in my lifetime.
yeah.
That will be the catalyst for the work I do moving forward. So,
Oh,
and it was a lot around, yeah, the abandonment wound and experiencing that in a foreign country. Um, and yeah, like I'm still in the process of the integration of everything I experienced there. So, yeah, I'll speak to that once I've fully integrated it. Cause yeah, it's like my level of embodiment, like I'll only speak to that like once it's like, okay, I've actually integrated that fully.
yeah.
But yeah, Bali was and that's the very thing. It's very much like I listened to that calling of like, okay, like it's time to shake things up a little bit. And
Mhm.
yeah, that was very much the reason for going.
I am
Yeah.
like from one human being to another, I'm so proud of you, dude. Like that takes so much courage to,
Mm.
I mean, I've moved myself quite a few times. I find that one of the first things I tell people if they really want to shake shit up in life, like you had just said, or if they really want a big change, move out of your fucking hometown. Just get out of there.
Mhm.
Like there's so much world out there. There's so many cultures and so many people and so many experiences that you're never going to have if you're living in the same road with the same street and the same fence. Like you're just not going to experience it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really, dude, like huge props to you because that's so brave, and especially to go to a completely other place, like a completely other land. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's becoming a bit of a theme for me, to be honest. And
That,
it's like I lived in Brisbane, I lived in Gold Coast for a while, then I moved to Bali. And when I came back from Bali, I've just moved to the Sunshine Coast, which is further up north on the east coast of Australia.
wow.
And doing that, each time I do that, I get to step out of the picture. I get to step out of, okay, what did I create while I was in that environment? While I was in that environment. And I kind of, in my mind, I have like these geographical like locations of like awakenings and transformations that have gone on in my life. Yeah.
That. Same,
Yeah.
dude. I've never heard anybody else explain it that way, but literally, like if I looked at a map, I'd be like, oh, when I lived here in Tennessee, this was a spiritual journey. This was like,
Mhm.
I love that we have that in common. Truly, like each place I've
Yeah.
ever lived, like the first one to Tennessee, the mountains were calling me. Like it felt so cliche, but I found them while I was road tripping after the divorce. And I was like, I have got to move here. Like there's something here for
Mm.
me. And that opened up, I mean, I can't even explain to you how many things happened in Tennessee that were, in the beginning of your spiritual journey of one of, we'll call
Yeah.
it branches of that tree, you legitimately are like, am I crazy? Am I? Have I actually lost my motherfucking mind? That actually happened in Tennessee, which was fantastic because I had such incredible friends there who were in the beginning stages of a very similar journey. So it was really awesome for us to be able to chat about it. And then here in Wisconsin, the growth that has happened for us here, my fiance and I, has been astronomical. Like it has
Mm.
been so personal and so deep for each of us individually, but also as a couple. Like before we even started this podcast today, I ended up having a conversation with him and we slow danced in our living room. And I was like, this is exactly why we do the work, is so that we can have moments like this. So tell me,
Mm.
what are, if you don't mind, and then I'd love to do a little bit of identity work and talk about that, but
Mm.
what are some of your geographical, like spiritual awakening moments? I'd love to hear those.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brisbane was where I grew up with my family. So living there was very much, yeah, like it was me unplugging from the norms. It was
Yeah.
me unplugging from the life that I'd been conditioned by my parents, right? That was me really awakening to um, what is actually possible out there. And then probably the most important thing that I get all my clients to do is start shifting up their environment, like the people they're around. So that was that was the beginning. So the internal environment was the information I started consuming. Then I
Yeah.
recognized, okay, I need to start getting around some different people. So I went to, if you know Tom Bilyeu, Impact Theory,
Mm,
he came to Brisbane. Yeah, he came to Brisbane. I'm like, well, those people are going to be there, so I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go VIP because that's where they're going to be, right?
yeah.
And the very first person I sat next to is now one of my best friends. He
Mm,
runs one of Australia's most successful personal development events companies, and I plugged in with him. We actually became business partners in a company for a while together. And together, I then moved to the Gold Coast, and then that was like my entrepreneurial and spiritual awakening. That was
yeah.
me getting around people that were doing things differently, that were actually living the life that I wanted. So that was really Gold Coast for me. Gold Coast, there, living there was like me building my roots within business, within actually creating, being in the right vehicle that could actually create me this life that I wanted to create for myself. It was
Yeah.
me just doing the deep groundwork, like letting go of all of the the things that I had been conditioned to be or do from growing up as a child, right? But there was
Yeah.
still lots of like little boy stuff. There was still like, even though I was doing this, I got into an incredible relationship then, And that was then my initiation into from Gold Coast to Bali. Bali was it was like the straw on the camel's back sort of thing. It
Mm,
was the very last thing that was preventing me from truly stepping into the man. Like
mm,
heal the boy and the man appears,
yeah,
right? The little boy was still yearning to be loved and he needed to be loved a certain way. And he was still depending on a woman emotionally for him to feel worthy enough within himself.
yeah.
So then, yeah, moving to Bali was that like the little boy, the abandonment wound,
Mm-hmm.
right? The fear of abandonment, experiencing this deep soul connection, then moving to Bali, and then her leaving in a
Mm.
foreign country, completely abandoned me in a foreign country. And
Oh,
that little boy, and yeah, this is speaking into some of the stuff I experienced there. That little boy had to hold himself for the first time. And because of the level, the depth, like when the students are ready, the teacher will appear. And that was the invitation. That was the teacher. That was the initiation of like, okay, you're ready to face your greatest fear right now in order for you to actually step into the man you know you're capable of being. And it's time. You're ready, and what you're going to create in this world is going to be a catalyst for that. So here you go. Like, and I just got gifted this incredible opportunity to heal the boy. And that whole journey in Bali was healing the boy. And
man.
now being back here, it's this part of the coast. If you know these coasts, Sunshine Coast is grounding. This is like the roots. So
Oh,
now I'm here and I'm really integrating and grounding into that deep masculine that is slowly and still awakening within me. And that's really going to be the catalyst for yeah, what I'm yet to create moving forward. So now it's very much, yeah, it's me grounding into that potential and into my deepest power, which has been there the whole time, and I've never really understood or knew what was there. I'm like, there's just always so much more, and the more that I keep going back into here, yeah, the more just unexplainable things start happening. Like the amount of money I start inviting in, the relationships, the people, the experiences, the opportunities. It's like, yeah, and basically to sum all of that up, it's me seeing myself through the eyes of my deepest self for the very first time. From
yeah.
5 years old, I stepped away from that. And now at 27 years old, I've been invited back to that to recognize the power that was actually there that I thought was actually too much for people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, first of all, I just have to say straight up, thank you for your vulnerability. Like this is something that I talk to everybody about. I don't know that we get the thank yous and the open hearts and the hugs and the space held enough for when we are being vulnerable. Um, Vulnerability, I don't know that I would be where I am today if I wouldn't have made that one of the pillars of my life and my business. And the fact that you're doing this work, and I spoke to Trav as well, and you guys are doing such incredible work. We all are doing such incredible work. And it stems into the vulnerability, the integrity, the accountability, like these pieces to the puzzle. And listening to you be so open about your journey, I fucking know that there's going to be somebody that listens to it and it's going to open them up. Like listening to this podcast, there's going to be a woman, a dude, someone out there who's like, oh my gosh,
mm,
he's putting into words what I've been feeling. And I think that that's so important. Like, whoever listens to these podcasts, all y'all out there, you guys know the drill. When I have someone on, when I have a guest here, it's not just for us to have some kick-ass conversation, which is great, by the way. However, and it's also so that you guys can find your soul coaches, your soul mentors, your soul guides, your soul healers. Like, I'm a big believer that you will find your soul clients from being on here. You'll connect with them. And, it's these beautiful synchronistic moments, these little aha moments, the lightning bolts to your soul where you're like, ah, that's right. Like this all happened,
Mm.
domino effect. So
Yeah.
thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for stepping into that. I really am grateful. And thank you for doing that also on behalf of your soul clients, because again, I'm positive there's somebody that heard that and they're like, well, now I know who I'm going to call. Like now I'm going to message Ryan. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And yeah, look, it's like my journey, like I've invested over 75,000 Australian dollars into my growth and journey. And it's very much been that. It's been, who is the person that is the embodiment, who is the actual identity of the man that I wish to be? Awesome.
Mhm.
How can I learn from them as much as I can?
Yeah.
And that's how I've invested in coaches and mentors and things like that. So yeah, that's why I love doing podcasts. So people can
Love
get
it.
that feel. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit before we leave today about how you work with clients, or what are some of your viewpoints as a coach, as a mentor, about the importance of stepping into that identity that, you've worked so hard to master, to cultivate, to create, because otherwise that energy is just sitting there and you're stuck in the old ways. You know what I mean?
Mm, yeah. I think the most important identity to own is the one of who you are actually born to be.
Mm,
So discovering that first and foremost,
yep.
because I feel with the work of the identity, it can be very much still trying to become someone in order to feel better about yourself. And yet it's still something outside of you. So
Yeah.
very first and foremost, it's coming back to the deepest part of you. So through the work I do, it's very much for the first at least month, it's like really feeling into who is that? What does that feel like? What does that look like? And then shedding and overcoming all of the energetic, subconscious, emotional blocks that actually prevent you from being that fully expressed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the identity work that really comes in is actually recognizing that power and seeing yourself through the eyes of that, as I shared before. So it's like identity is self-image. So it's how we see ourselves, right? So seeing yourself through the eyes of your deepest self, through that deep connection of the power that you actually have within you, which is actually connecting with your heart moment to moment, right? The more we recognize that, come back to that and build the identity around that, that's where we really, I believe, and me personally, I've really awakened into the deepest part of myself, which has then been the person that's then created the life that I've now created for myself.
Yeah.
Um, and with that, yeah, there's then the other external identities, right? The identity of a business owner, of a partner, and all these things. But
Yeah.
it still stems back to like yourself, because if you don't feel, and people that experience imposter syndrome, it's because they've achieved the thing or they're attracting the thing, yet they still feel unworthy of it based on a story or whatever's playing out for them in their nervous system. So they've attracted this thing and they're like, oh my God, like this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right for my nervous system. So what I call it is identity regulation. They
Mm,
regulate themselves back down to what they actually believe to be true about themselves or how they actually see themselves on a deep, unconscious level. And we'll continuously do that. But the more we recognize ourselves, our deeper selves, which is, right, the true essence of who we are is our heart,
yeah.
right? Our heart is divine consciousness, it's love, it's everything. And when
Mhm.
we come back and we realize that, we recognize that we're worthy of everything because we are everything and everything is us. We are in a relationship with everything. There is nothing that we are unworthy of because we already have it. We already are it.
Yeah.
And the more we recognize that connection to there's no separation between anything, that's when we recognize that, cool, okay, like, you know, this is, I can receive this.
Yes.
This is who I am. I deserve this because the only reason this is in my field is because I'm at that energetic vibration. If it wasn't in my field, it's just because I'm not at that frequency yet. So
Yeah.
anything that we invite in, it could be people, like a person, a relationship, the amount of money, it only shows up because you're at that level of frequency yourself. It wouldn't be there otherwise. The more we can recognize that and make that familiar, yeah, like this is really how I help people cultivate the identity within themselves. And yeah, it's quite profound what happens when we own that within ourselves.
Oh, hell yeah, it is. It's,
Mm.
I think it's also quite profound that is when we recognize that 9 times out of 10, if we would just look at what we're avoiding, that's literally the key. Like that's always the key. Like if you are like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to call this thing into my life, like a relationship,
Mm.
if you're an entrepreneur, your business, and like you were just saying, you're like, I'm not matching up, like we're not on the same playing field right now. Well, take a look at, I mean, if you don't want to look at your words and your actions and your behaviors because it feels so overwhelming, which it can, because outside of that, like this work is so important, but for most people, literally most people, most of my clients, they're not sitting doing this work all the time like I am. They do
Mm.
this work and then they go to a 9 to 5 job where they have somebody that they can't stand telling them to do work that they can't stand. Like, and it's not always like that, but that's at the end of that scale. And so the clients that are feeling that way, I just ask them to look at what have you been avoiding? Like
Mm.
anything. Have you been avoiding opening mail on your fucking table? Have you been
Yeah.
like what have you been having pop up? Like literally as I'm saying this right now, something that I have not consciously been avoiding, because sometimes it's not conscious. Something just popped up for me that like, hey bitch, you should probably do that because you're talking about avoiding stuff right now. Like when we recognize, like all you have to do is just look at what you're avoiding, because that's one of the biggest pieces that can create resistance. It can change so
Mm.
much. And I love what you were saying so much about building that identity and it being outside of it. And it made me think of conversations that I have with clients about identity.
Mm.
When we talk about this, I like to make pictures in my brain and share them because it makes it a lot easier for it to sink in for me.
Yeah.
So I talk to clients about, imagine you got a home that you're renovating, right? You got this home, it's in your dream location, it has good bones, like it's a good fucking house, and you're gonna reno it. That's the same as doing your inner work. You're doing the shadow work. You're going in, you're cleaning shit out, you're putting up new walls, like you are making it nice again. And there's a point where you have to recognize it's time to fucking move in. Like the work there, the major work is done. And now from here on out, it's maintenance. It's not
Mm.
the deep, hard work that you don't have to tear down any more walls right now. Maybe in like 20 years you have to, but not fucking right now. And
Yeah.
that space, that transition that clients find themselves in, they do recognize like, oh my gosh, I've been working on this house, this energy of this new identity, who I wanted to be, the future I wanted for so long. I forgot that I can stop working on it and I can just enter into that house because it's mine. Like
Yeah.
it's that recognition of, oh my gosh, I can now live where I've created.
Mhm. And it's interesting. It's funny when you put it in that perspective. It's like looking at the house, you're like, oh, still, I need to do more. I need to fix up that because you're still projecting from a place of it's still not good enough. So I got to keep fixing it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, let me fix the shutters, let me do the landscaping. It's like, no, dude, just go live in the house. And once
Hmm.
you're there, then you'll get a better idea of what you actually want to work on, right?
Hmm.
Like this is the big part that this is something I went through with one of the many identity shifts, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well on your end. I moved into the house, let's say, moved into the identity that I had been working so hard to create. And it
Hmm.
smacked me right in the middle of the forehead because I was like, I wanted to make sure this was right and this was right and this was right before I fucking moved in. But guess what? Had I done that, I would have made things harder because I didn't know what it was like to live in this house yet. I was assuming. I was like, oh, it probably feels like that to live in that house. I didn't know. And as soon as I
Hmm.
stepped into that identity, I immediately was like, thank you, divine timing. Thank you very much, universe, God, source. Because if I would have waited and drug my feet to make these changes to that identity and all this work, i.e., the house, I would have never fucking moved in. And if I would have, it would have created changes that didn't need to happen. So it's just recognizing, at least the way that I teach, and please if this works, especially it just made me think like you're in construction, so like if this works for you, please use it for your clients because it's so
Yeah.
fantastic. Like when you think about building that house, it makes so much sense because you're like, yes, it's just the maintenance from here on out. It's not the fucking tearing out the drywall that has black mold and shit. Like you don't have to do that anymore. You just have to make sure you're taking care of what you created and built.
Yeah. On this one big concept that I teach in my work is we have, so to speak, the dark shadow, which is like the shadow that we're like avoiding, the shadow where it's lack, it's not good enough, it's all the shit basically, right?
Yeah.
And yet, from the work of Dr. John Demartini, he's a great mentor of mine,
Nice.
is when we try and live a one-sided life in a two-sided reality, it's the root of all suffering. When we
Mhm.
don't see the opposites, the both sides of things, then we're out of balance.
Yeah.
And when we only see the one side, we identify with it.
Mm.
So when we see both sides, we then see it objectively for as it is. That's living in balance. That's being whole.
Yeah.
Now, when we're only looking at the one side of the dark shadow, we're out of balance still because we're looking at one side and then we become identified with, well, that's who I am.
Yeah.
Right. So it's loving that side, but then it's also seeing the other side, which is what I call the golden shadow.
Mm.
The golden shadow is actually seeing all of the value that you have and that you bring to the world, all of the incredible things about yourself, and actually being able to own that within yourself. Because one of the things I do with my clients is a lot of men very much pedestal their partner,
Mm.
their woman, like this incredible woman. They pedestal her,
Yeah.
right? And the reason they do that is because most men haven't actually owned their value that they bring to the table. And the reason why they pedestal them is like, whoa, she's so loving, she's so caring, she's so beautiful, she's so smart, she's so funny, she's all of these things, she's so successful, whatever it is. And the only reason that they see that in her is because it's within them. And if it wasn't within them, they wouldn't actually see those traits. And the
Yeah.
reason they pedestal is because they haven't owned those traits within themselves yet. So they think it's foreign. They think it's incredible. It's like, wow, how incredible. Right. So that's the golden shadow. I get my clients to look at that. Look at all the traits that you've just written down. Recognize that you are all of those because that's what you see in her. She is the mirror reflecting back to you all of those traits.
Yeah.
So their work and their journey is to own every single one of them and to connect with every single one of those traits. And that's the owning of the golden shadow. And then once they see that, they then get to love the dark and the light, the positive and the negative, right? Bringing balance back into the work, into themselves. And yeah, it's super incredible. So on that analogy, it's like, yeah, recognize like where you could fix some things in the house, but also live in the house and love it for being what it is. Like, how incredible is this place? How beautiful is it where we get to live? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
so it's recognizing that too.
I love that. Oh, this is such a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for being here, Ryan. I really appreciate it. Thank you for reaching out and being like, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast. That was so cool.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to touch on a few more things because
Mhm.
we talked about so much, which I love, and I really want to make sure that I hone in on these areas because these are areas, listeners out there, this is what Ryan really dives into with clients. And we've talked about, like I said, so much of this, but just listen to this and see if this is anything that you, your partner, anybody in your life is really hoping to dive into. So you do a lot with helping your clients tap into their true potential through healing the shadow self. So fucking important. Love that you're doing that work. The art of masculine and feminine, men's work, women's work, embodiment, relationships, business, and life. We talked about a lot of that today. Discovering your highest purpose and overcoming adversary, bit of a speech impediment, adversary, there we are. And love that as well, because, it really is stepping into the purpose that you feel that you are ready for, worthy of, that you want. Like, there's so much aim of what we're worthy for, what we deserve, but like, what do you actually fucking want? Like, do you want to step into this purpose or that purpose? Like, which one you want to do, type of thing. And I love that you are in that work. And the art of becoming and developing the identity of your highest self. Kind of the same thing there. Like, you get to pick and choose, like, who's the highest self version of you right now? And do you want to be that? Or do you want to do like a big jump and go to like the highest version of yourself 10 years from now, type of thing?
Mhm.
So thank you for doing that work. And can you just give a shout out to anybody that's wanting to do this, how they can get in touch with you and start working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I show up a lot on Instagram and Facebook. So just
Yeah.
Ryan Moresby-White. My link will probably be in the show notes somewhere. And
Yeah.
yeah, people connect with me on there, send me a follow, and yeah, I'm an open book. People who have any questions or anything like that. I wanted to quickly touch on the purpose piece though, quickly
Yeah.
before we close up. One of the greatest things that I teach within the work that I do, I believe it's one of the greatest things that I do,
Yeah.
is that when people discover the depth of themselves, they recognize and realize that they are their greatest purpose. And
Mm,
our purpose in life is to actually grow and evolve. When we look out there in nature, a tree will grow to its fucking potential, right? So when we recognize ourselves and we come back to the deepest part of ourselves, right? We recognize that we are our greatest potential and we are our purpose. And therefore, what people see outside of themselves as what they perceive as being a purpose, like, oh, that's my purpose. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. No, that's actually just an outlet for you to direct your purpose, being you, right, into a mission and into something that's going to serve in the way that's connected to your purpose, which is your deepest self. So
yeah,
I help people discover their missions, but most of all, discover their purpose, which is their deepest self, which is them themselves.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, coming back home to
Mm.
yourself and then plug and play and whatever feels good. That's your purpose in that moment.
Yes,
Love
that's
that.
it.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Well,
Mm.
thank you, Ryan, for being here. This was an incredible conversation. Like I said, I would love to have you come back on. I would love to hear more about your spiritual awakening journeys, all of those, if you'd care to share. I think that would be so amazing. And you guys, thank you again for being here. As you know, with these episodes, one of the biggest pieces to the puzzle that I want to bring forward is that you're opening your mind, you're opening your heart, you're opening yourself up to learn, whether it's learning something brand new, the nuggets of wisdom that myself, my guests drop during these episodes. Maybe it's time that you step away, like what we were just talking about. Maybe it's time you start looking at what you're avoiding or anything else that we said. If any of this sparks something in you, let me know. Let Ryan know. Send him a message. I would love for you to send me a DM on Instagram. All of you guys already know that. I'm going to send you a voice clip back. We're going to chit chat. So make sure that you're letting us know how you feel about these episodes, especially today, because it's so important. And this is going to be airing. I want to say this airs the end of March-ish. So at this time, you guys, when you're listening to this is the springtime. This is America on our end. I'm not sure. Is it going to be fall for you guys then down in Australia? You're about
It's
spring
kind of
months?
slowly coming into, yeah, winter time.
2 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on our end, y'all, if you're listening to this and you're also in the springtime, just consider blossoming into what we're talking about. If you are wanting to blossom into feminine energy in the way where you're fully recognizing the fact, like Ryan's been saying, it already lives inside of you. This isn't something you're going to have to go search for. It is something you're going to have to uncover and do work to uncover, though. So if you are in a space in your life where you're wanting to do that, you want to do everything from mindset work into reconnection to your body. Maybe you want to do a little bit of reconnection with your spiritual gifts. Maybe you want to get a little bit more in tap with ancestors, guides, or even just simply intuition. Because I say simply because it's so innate within you. And once you work with, I'm sure Ryan does this as well, but once you work with me and we really get you back in touch with your intuition, you're gonna be like, oh shit, I've been doing this the whole time. I didn't realize I was doing it though. So if you are into any of that, I do have my 5-week retreat. By the time that you're hearing this, it may already be going, but reach out, let me know if you're interested, because of course, this time in the spring of 2024 for this virtual retreat, I am bringing in 2 guest teachers. So you have Stephanie Eastman and Katie Henricks, that is, that's going to be there. One of which is our intimacy and our sensuality coach, Katie, and then also Gene Keys. So basically, if astrology and human design had a baby, it would be Gene Keys, and Stephanie Eastman will be teaching that. So definitely dive into all of this. Let me know if you want to be a part of the 5-week retreat. And as usual, you guys, go out and do something nice for yourself and go out and do something nice for someone else. Do it from your heart, do it genuinely, be authentically you. If at any point in the last year you have said out loud that you want to be your authentic, your unbothered, your unapologetic, your whatever self, I'm going to dare you right now to fucking do it. Go do it today. Stop talking about it, get your ass up, go out there and be that. Go do that, because you're never going to fully step into that energy until you actually fucking step into it. So go do something nice today for yourself. Smile, bring joy into your own life, and do the same for someone else. Ryan, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you guys soon.